to the Summer of Woo, you radiant brightlings. This season, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry is casting a light on all things mystical. By tapping into the magic in and all around us, we'll better connect to our individual and collective sacredness so we can shine our brightest. Join us. Well, this is the last of our 6-episode miniseries, so thanks for joining us, and go back if you haven't, as we open ourselves up to mystery and woo.
Okay, I just have to say, opening ourselves up to mystery and woo, to me sounds so not only exciting, but also like, oh, back to myself. Like opening myself up to mystery and woo just feels like going back home. I
I was
don't
just
know
gonna say,
why.
it's a return home.
Yeah.
I Yeah, opening up to mystery and woo, it just things get so much more expansive than what we do here on Earth School, right? Than on the human plane, right? It just makes everything seem bigger than us.
Yes. And for whatever reason, I actually like to be reminded that things are bigger than I am. The first time, I think I shared this quite a few episodes ago. The first time I ever saw a large body of water was Lake Superior because, duh, I live in Minnesota. We both do. And the first time I saw it, I was so overwhelmed with it in a good way. Like, oh, this is expansiveness. This is limitlessness because I couldn't see the other shore. And I think I also shared in that episode that we all decided to throw a penny in and make a wish. Sorry, Lake Superior. So I threw the penny in and made a wish to live on the ocean. And then, like the
Happened.
following year, was moving to Rhode Island. I was like, not now. But, anyways, the ocean always makes me feel like that. And also, if I'm in the country at night and can see the stars.
Mm.
But I feel like there are other things besides nature and what is in front of us that can make us feel like that as well.
Well, but that's why I like going hiking. When people are like, "Oh, why do you like going out in the woods?" I like to feel small. And like
Yeah.
going up to the North Shore, I mean, it's not a redwood, but it's pretty close. And like big rocks, big trees, big open spaces, like you said, big open sky, expansiveness. And I think both of those, not only does it, remind us we're just this teeny tiny little thing in the cosmos, but I'm noticing a common thread of nature.
Yes. So,
And especially since when you said return to home, um, so many people I feel like just want to go and live in the woods. Maybe still have indoor plumbing somehow, but like they just want to be among the trees and, things like that.
I can't tell you how many times I see there is one account that I follow that always has it's just these brilliant sayings about every woman just wants to be in the woods and be with nature and be thought of as the moss witch of they go on like that. And all of a sudden it devolves into you just like living on moss and mushrooms and being the witch that everyone comes to for advice.
Just I don't know, there's that sense of something greater than you, which I think is what turns a lot of people onto religion, right? Like it's something you can kind of dump yourself on, but also be validated and seen by.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what is it? I feel like for what we're talking about though, is it just another form of religion? Is nature is I mean, what is that then?
So I think with magic, a lot of it comes down to like that faith, trust, and pixie dust, right? That like you have to like when it what was it with Tinkerbell and other fairies, like if you don't clap, if you don't believe, they die, right? And so everybody has to
Right.
clap, clap, clap. And I think that's the thing with magic that is also related to religion and things, is it's just like this inner knowingness and then this trust that that's right, or that that's there, your belief will support you, what you think is going to happen will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I it feels like a two-way street type of thing. Like you get something from the nature, but you're also giving something back in your trust, in your belief in that kind of space that which is similar to religion because you are, if you're going to a church, you're receiving something and you're giving something back
I think with
with the give and take.
the magic and mystic that we've been talking about though is it's not only that give and take, but also that feeling small and feeling greater than yourself is also feeling connected to like this energy outside of this human body that you can affect, right? Like that's where the magic comes in, where I think it's a little bit
Mm,
different than religion, is where you're
mm.
not only connecting to source, but you're doing something with it.
You're right, because I feel like religion is more here I am, and I don't actually have to do anything do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
don't
a lot
have
of
to
it, you
give
might have to
anything
follow
back.
some rules, be a part of a
Yes.
community,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's a lot of asking and then being on your best behavior, where I feel like what draws a lot of people to the magical and the mystical is it's more interactive. It's more like you're connecting to this thing that's greater than you and, like, trying to use that energy to do something here.
Right. So it's like you're taking that energy and focusing into whatever it is that you want to focus it into. Yeah. So this started off in a completely different way than I think either one of us thought it would start off. But I love it. And I'm just wondering, like, how. So, because this is our last one, and last time, I think we were feeling like, oh, do we need to continue with this? Do we need to just step back and figure out something else? What would our listener like to hear? What are you feeling right now about this and about this topic?
Oh, you mean in terms of, like, producing a podcast or a
No,
show?
just like where we're at with it.
Well, yeah, in the last episode, I had both had so many experiences to share on, and then after the show ended, we kept going. There's so much more to talk about, and, like, I was surprised and kind of looking back at the notes and what we ended up talking about. Not once did we bring up Esther Hicks. Like there's so much more and it gets even more wooey, right? Like I feel like we didn't really fully dive deep into the woo
Yeah.
in terms of all that's out there and that people believe in or work with. And so it just tells me like this is ripe out there that we both experience it both intentionally and it just kind of happens every day. And the more that we talk and we share it with people, that's what I hear. We asked our Instagram followers at the beginning of this to, rate their woo. And unsurprisingly, people who listen to their show actually rated it pretty high. But there were a few
Mhm.
people I was surprised by that were a little bit lower, but it seems like they're, woo adjacent or interested. And
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to kind of talk about, like how anyone, but especially those people can like harness their power and like use that energy like we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like for someone who is woo adjacent, which is one of my favorite terms, I got it from, I get a newsletter from Laura Belgray, who is very 3D, does copywriting work and email work, and has, just an excellent writer. She calls herself woo adjacent, and her husband, in fact, makes fun of her if she does anything spiritual like at all. So I got that term from her. But I feel like for anyone who's woo adjacent, just that whole, like what we were talking about in the beginning with nature, just connecting to nature is such an easy way to feel something outside of yourself and a connection to yourself, both, right? You're connected to something, you're connected to the nature, and you also feel that greater than type of energy. And so I think that's a super easy way to be woo adjacent. And I think that people who are that naturally don't think about nature in that way. I think that they probably enjoy it, but don't necessarily have that thought process. But I think if they thought about it for a second, they would agree. They'd be like, oh, yeah, that's it.
I want to call out the woo adjacent people. So, Laura, is that what you said?
Laura Belgray.
Laura
Yes.
Belgray, people who listen to the show, and I'm even going to include myself in this to a point because I think when we use the term woo adjacent, especially publicly, it's like a defense mechanism and a protectiveness. Like, please still take me seriously. Oh, like you can walk it back. It can be kind of silly if it's not real, right? And I want to question, like, is that really where your self-awareness is? Because I wonder if there is anything, such a thing as woo adjacent. I feel like maybe there's a woo novice and that's different. But if you have that
Yeah.
awareness of woo enough to be like, oh, I'm woo adjacent, you're wooey. You're wooey. And
I
I
love
feel
it.
like you're just making sure that the normies, that the muggles, don't like treat you less seriously. And you're letting people know, oh, I'm still logical, or I can still work, like you said, in the
Yeah.
3D. But it seems like those people believe, and maybe they just don't know how to use it, how to take that step.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Good point. So, baby step, what would you say is like, I mean, I feel like I said something with nature, but to be intentional with it, with
So
art.
I think it goes back first before like any action. It's that self-awareness piece and like what's blocking you from saying like, oh, I am wooey, and claiming it and owning it, because I don't think you don't have to share it with others, but if you're hiding it, are you fully in it? So I last year my neighbor texted me. I had put some lights up in my window on November 1st, but they're stars and they're white light, and just with like how early it gets dark here where we are, it makes me happy. So he immediately texted me. He noticed him the first night and he's like, Halloween, we barely knew you. And I was like, no, 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 these aren't Christmas lights. These are winter solstice, like my spirit needs to shine, like kind of like I said something a little wooey but a little jokey or whatever. And he goes, all right, had anybody else said that, I would have called bullshit, but like I fully believe that you're like calling in the power of the light or whatever. And like whatever he said, it made me feel seen, but then my reaction was I thought I hit it better. At least with my neighbor, right? Like I didn't think my neighbors knew how wooey I was. And here, like the little joke that I made and his longer response, I was like, oh no. Everybody knows. And so I think you kind of get in your own way um with whether or not you're feeling powerful in this magical mystical space. So I think at first you have to claim it. Again, you don't have to announce it, but I think you have to claim what it is you want or believe in or want to believe in and do.
Okay. I, first of all, I love it that you said you have to claim it. And then I immediately went to my Gallup strengths portion of my brain. And there's a worksheet that says name it, claim it, aim it. And so I feel like that, again, another thing that we can turn around and aim towards this topic, that you can name it. Yes. Um, I want to feel more connected with nature, with the universe, with the stars, with
With
the
manifesting,
fairies, with
yeah.
whatever. So you name it, then you claim it, say yes, and I am going to, I am claiming this, that this is what I want. And then you aim it and you say, and I will, my intention is to do this ritual towards XYZ, right? I think there you have it, but I love it that you do have to claim it. And I'm also thinking about something else that you said. It was either last episode or the episode before, that it all comes down to intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your intention? And I think that so often people either put too much emphasis on intention or not enough. And when I say too much emphasis, I'm thinking about, oh, it has to be the right intention and it has to be this, it has to be that. Your intention can actually just be, so I feel more at peace with myself. I mean, it can be so simple. And sometimes we forget that.
Well, and that's the thing with, the magical and the mystical and this energy we've been talking about. It's the harnessing your power. And I think that's what turns a lot of people off about magical practices is the power piece, right? And like, what do you attribute that to? And are you ready to hold your own power? Or do you think something else has power and you're going to get in trouble for taking it,
Oh,
right? And so,
yeah.
like, there's this power space. But if you don't have that intention, how do you know what you're trying to harness and how can you control it and how can you work with it? Like my favorite Alan Watts quote is where he's like, well, a net is just a bunch of tiny holes tied together with strings. And so I just think of like trying to like net and harness this with just a bunch of tiny holes and you don't have the strings, right? Like,
Right. And
you know,
I always say, you'll never get what you don't know you want. And so you have to know your intention, but also the net thing. I'm sorry, I just keep going
not
back
the
to
best.
that.
A bunch of tiny holes tied together with string. It makes so much
But the
sense, doesn't
so
it?
the other thing I was thinking about when you said harnessing your power, and some people are kind of turned off by that, maybe the power thing. But when I think of like it just downloaded into my brain when I think of harnessing your power, right? I think of like the craft, and they're like
Oh,
doing the calling out to the four. I
to the
mean,
directions and the yeah.
exactly. And then it's like, oh, this wind comes in. It's like it doesn't have to be that dramatic either,
No. I mean,
right?
what makes you feel powerful in this space? So we've talked about nature. Anything else come to mind
Oh,
right away?
you're asking me. Yes.
Anybody, sure. I mean, if people
Okay.
are listening, feel free to shout. Like I mean, one thing
So
that I think of with you that you're really good at, and I have to imagine makes you feel powerful, at least connected, ritual. You talk about ritual a lot, and you are really good at when you decided you wanted to connect with your ancestors, you had an altar, you had a practice, like you were ready to do it, and then you did all the things you set out to.
yeah, I'm really glad that you said that because I don't know that I would have come up with ritual on my own. And so thank you for saying that. And I do think that ritual grounds me in a practice. And by grounding me, let's see if I can get this out. By grounding me, I'm rooted. And by being rooted, I feel like I can open up and harness power because I'm safe. I'm in a safe space, but I'm also in an intentional space. So I agree, it would be ritual. Thank you for that. I don't know that I would have come to that. So what about you? What makes you feel powerful?
So I've been thinking about that a lot this year because I haven't felt super connected or powerful, at least in ways I have before. Stuff I've been doing have just like, I think I've said before, I just feel like I'm, screaming wants into the ether and then feeling bad about it because I'm not doing anything else or I'm not generating power, or I'm not being consistent. And it was pointed out to me recently by somebody who works in energy that with all the pain I've been in my body and with my surgeries and all that, I have checked out of my body. And a lot of
Oh,
like when you said grounding, like that rooting yourself to the earth is rooting yourself in your body. And then, like you said, it helped you feel more open in the chakras, right? Like the top three are with the cosmos and the ether and opening
mhm,
up, and the bottom three are really like in your body and connected to the earth. And then your heart is where heaven and earth join together, right? Magic happens.
yeah,
And so it's like, oh, I got to get back in my body. And I feel like that actually, when I feel comfortable and powerful in my body and like the earth portion here, it allows me to feel more powerful and connected and opened up because I can do that grounding. But otherwise, I feel too spacey if I'm just doing the earth stuff, right? Or if I'm just doing the cosmos stuff and just trying to meditate and open, but I'm not in my body. Oh my God, so much is going on and I don't know how to channel it or what to do with it. But if I sink too much in my body and I'm not meditating and I'm not trying to connect or open up, then I just feel kind of sluggish and like too much in this world and too aware of body stuff. So I feel like balance between those two areas, and that again, it's all about self-awareness.
right. But how do you balance that then?
So like just getting what she recommended, light body work exercises, right? So not avoiding some, like I've just kind of checked out of my body and things like that. I've been kind of doing the bare minimum, and it's asking my body what it needs, what it wants, what's going
Ooh,
on. I've had a
Yeah.
couple practitioners recommend that to me this year, and every time I hear it like it's the first time, so I'm hoping this time it sticks. But you can do little things like that, asking your body what it needs, asking your, your spirit or your soul what it needs, journaling, right? Like free writing, asking yourself questions and waiting for the answer, or not just going with like that immediate ego response, that logic-based response.
Yeah, that's the tough thing is having the discernment to separate those two. And I feel like sometimes that ego is sort of there's an energy behind that that if you feel into it, it's like, oh, I have to do this, right? Whereas maybe the intuition portion is more like, oh, this feels right.
And I
But
think
yeah,
in
it,
terms of like what makes me feel powerful, establishing a community that believes the same things I do and feeling like I fit into it, right? And so like I'll attend meditation workshops or other things like that, where I can both learn from others, practice and feel other people's energy, share mine, right? But be in a space where it's validating what I believe, right? And that I'm not like cuckoo crazy alone in my living room or running in the woods, right?
yeah. Oh, I agree 100%. I don't know that I've been a part of any kind of group like that recently, but honestly, just like our conversations, whether it's recorded or not recorded, it is either validating or empowering. So maybe I don't feel powerful, but it's empowering,
Yes.
right? And like I said, validating as well that, oh, like you said, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Um,
But, like, I've also and with, like, the larger community, yes, but then, like I said, I have that energy worker, so I have, a friend, Darcy, who does, massage therapy, but then she also does energy work. There are Reiki healers. For my birthday, I did an aura photo and kind of, like he kind of reads, like, your energy and what's going on. And so utilizing other people, so maybe if you don't feel strong in this space or, again, like, it's kinda like that outer validation, but then if you do energy healing, I feel like that helps kickstart you too, in a sense, or reconnect you if you've been feeling disconnected like I've been.
yeah, and I would say anyone who thought they were woo adjacent might feel hesitant to do an energy healing, but I love it that you said it could be a Kickstarter. It's like the
And
yeah,
like curiosity is great. So I had a friend where kind of similarly to how we kind of connected, I was looking around her office and I was like, "Ooh, I see you." Right? And like that made it easier to like test the waters and some things. And she invited me to a drum circle and I'd never been before. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course. Like that actually sounds fun." And it was a group thing, not like a one-on-one with a stranger thing, right? And so I show up with her, and then it turns out she's one of the healers during the drum
right.
circle, and she's
Yeah.
just like, "Surprise, I'm a healer." And so it was kinda nice, I got to meet other healers in that space, I got to experience a drum circle, different types of healing, right? So, like, there are different events where you can kind of test and try it out, you can bring a friend, you don't, just have to sit in a workshop and immediately drop in, right? Like, there
You
are
know,
expos.
yes, and you know what I just thought of, Tracy? You and I went to a it was like a community class. It was at a park. It was Women, Wine and Woods or
Yeah,
something like that.
Women, Woods, and Wine
Yes,
Wednesday.
but so it's not like there was no woo in there, right? But let me tell you, a group of women getting together and walking through the woods at
On a
night
full
with the
moon,
full moon. And then we sit around a giant cauldron
full of
that
syrup.
full of syrup and we're all talking and we've brought wine and snacks to share and it's
Women
you
had
hear all
pulling
these
sheath
women
boards, like,
talking. Oh my gosh, I was like, I'm in a coven right now. This is a coven.
right? And so, whatever feels comfortable to you, but in that situation, like, it was just the power of women in that
Yeah.
moment and just feeling safe and comfortable and, again, that nature aspect, that was so much fun. If you're too again, like, if you classify as woo adjacent, I don't wanna judge if you still self-identify that, and you want to do this alone, right? So journaling was one thing to explore. In the last episode, we've talked a lot about like, what did you do as a kid? What did you believe? Like, I fully believed I was powerful and I controlled wind. Like, I think that's the thing with harnessing your power again, it's that belief, right? Like, and that just, it made me feel powerful. And then I had a great day, the days I felt powerful, right? So like think, what did you do as a kid? Um, and then just be that adult kid, right? Like, and try it out now again. Tap back into
Or
like those feelings.
right. So I'm trying to think because I feel like I didn't necessarily do I certainly couldn't control the wind. Now, did I create, recipes and spells? Maybe. We did have this pile of it was actually they looked like old telephone poles, just all jumbled together behind our house on this street corner. This sounds very odd. And we called it Witch's Island. And all the kids would just like be on it and we would play these games and do this stuff. So it was that sense of adventure, but also we lived close to a lake and I was a freaking mermaid. I'm just gonna
I
say
was just
I
going to
was a
say,
mermaid.
like, how many 20 and 30-year-old women have we seen on social media be like, hey, do you want to come over and play mermaids? Like, we're
No,
all tapping back
seriously.
into it, right? Like, you
It's
were a mermaid. I
I
believe you
was.
were a
I was a
mermaid, Amy.
mermaid. And then I think I know I've shared this before. Every Halloween, I would come up with my own costume. And I was at the time, yes, I called it a gypsy because that's what my
Yeah.
grandpa called it. But I was this fortune teller. And I truly believed that. And I believed it into like a teenager that I had that ability. But I think at that point, I turned it into like witch. And then, of course, there was the dousing, right? The tamp it all down. But these are things that we thought of as kids. We
But like,
believed in it.
it doesn't surprise me that you were like, yeah, on this little witch island, I used to make potions and stuff because you got into aromatherapy as an adult, which is quite literally potions, right?
That's hilarious.
And
I
how
didn't even think about that.
you are a potion maker. I have some here that you've given me. I also, there's a lot of stuff. I've always been hesitant with the word witch because there's so much negative connotation around it. And I have my own impression of it that I'm trying to break free of. And then again, the same with the woo adjacent, like what are other people going to think kind of thing you have to get out of. But the more and more I learn about kitchen witches, it was like, oh, I do that, right? Or just even like how you make your tea or your coffee and set your intention for the day. Or let's say you like knit scarves, like, and you give them as gifts or you make a blank or whatever. I think your intention is more than just like the physical warmth of the person. You're probably like, I hope this makes them happy and healthy, right?
You're
Like, I hope this
literally
warms their heart.
knitting love into every strand,
Mhm.
right?
And
Yeah.
just think about if you weren't intentional with it before, how much more powerful can it feel to just give that as a gift or wear it if you start doing that now, right? Like if you think about what you're literally
Yes.
tying into the tiny holes with string, right? Like what's
Yes,
the
even
intent behind it?
I mean, you just mentioned coffee or tea in the morning. When I am intentional with my coffee in the morning and I use my magic spoon because I have a magic spoon and I actually I stir it and I'll say something over it. What a difference the day makes, right? What a difference that makes in the day is how I should have worded
Yeah.
it. But and once again, it's intention and ritual. It's some powerful stuff.
And I've gone through many periods of my life, either because I was hesitant with the woo or because I didn't feel super knowledgeable. And like things are becoming a lot more. I mean, it's all over social media. There are books at the library, right? So there are more resources now. There's more websites and things like that. But I didn't I wasn't sure what intention I wanted, or I had too many. And so, but I
Oh,
was aware of guides or just kind of like how, kind of similar to prayer, you're throwing stuff out at the universe, seeing what sticks or whatever. And I would ask my guides, what do I want? Or what am I good at? Or what should my intention be, right? So I talk all the time on here about audiomancy, right? Like I'm gonna put on a playlist, a random playlist, and I'm gonna hit shuffle. So I have a question in mind, and either the title of the song or the vibes or the lyrics themselves are gonna help answer this thing in me, right? or I've done one, I have it taped in my journal. I like wrote in a different handwriting that isn't mine, and I got like a list of 5 things. And just prior to that, I think one of the very first most powerful times I did it, where I just really meditated and sunk in and then just kind of waited, I started talking out loud in a accent that wasn't mine. And it was just like, you know what you want. You know, right? Like it was so annoyed with me, and it wasn't, like I was looking for an answer. So I know this wasn't me, or anything like that. And they're just like, you know what you want. It was like this thick, like Eastern European, and I come from like a Hungarian family, and I've talked before, like I have this one guide who's real sassy about the fortune telling aspect and tarot cards of things, when I ask specific questions like that and stuff. And they're just like, you know what you want, like stop at, like, and like those moments, and sometimes I get more specific answers, but like that's so powerful, whether I'm talking to my higher self, again, getting rid of ego, or there's an actual connection there. Like I had to ask first to get the response.
Tracy, that is such a good point because you do have to ask first and then you have to listen, right? Yeah, listen or hold the space for an answer because you can't just ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. There has to be that space where an answer can come through.
And you have to be okay if it's not the answer you wanted.
Oh, golly, I hate that. But yes, you do.
I'd say other ways to harness your power. So one thing I do locally, I right now I do it, I just did it on my birthday, and I usually do it around between the solstice and New Year, but we have a salt cave in town. It's not a real cave. One of the rooms, they make it look like it. All man-made. So I find it really meditative because they say no cell phones, no talking. Now, because in a post-COVID environment, they are solo sessions. So it's either you and whoever you bring with in the room.
Oh, that's
Yeah, isn't that nice?
interesting.
And the
I've
cost
only
isn't
been
any different.
once with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so the purpose of it is primarily respiratory, and then also just like a time. They pipe salt in the air. And I love just sitting in these rooms that either look like cave or like these salt bricks with this music and these lights. I'll post it on Instagram on our stories. But I just feel like in the winter, like I had to go to the sea because I had a touch of the vapors, right? Like, so I treat it like a little vacation, but then it's my special place. And especially now that it's just me, and I find it so energizing. And I think energy can also make you feel powerful, right? Or help you tap into that power.
Oh, that's such a great point. Yes.
And that's why I love that they're solo now, because although I'm still quiet and somewhat meditative, I can be all jazzed and like let it, I don't have to ground too much. I can just fully be bouncing around with my energy in there.
Mhm.
But that's something that I found locally, that it helps me feel powerful, or it kind of like helps me recharge so I can tap into my power, or at least it's a 45-minute meditative, quiet, cool experience, right? I've done the hydro salt float bath tank things, where you
You
go and complete.
have?
Oh yeah, my ADD cannot handle it, but I know other practitioners that like it's really powerful for them, and it helps them really connect. And like you said before, like they can ask a question, then they can just listen, they can just download. But it's where you're in like total darkness if you choose, and then you just float in a salt bath by yourself. And like sometimes it's a little egg, mine was a little room. Um, but so like finding ways to like tap into it and make it special for you at first,
Mhm.
and especially if you'd prefer to do it alone. But yeah, and then there's so many things about the moon these days, right? Like we all love la luna. That there's moon classes, moon meditations, like we
Yeah.
did that thing that didn't even turn out to be that. um or even there's tarot card readers everywhere. Amy did tarot card readings for a few of our listeners
Yeah.
that requested it
Yeah, I
on
did.
Instagram. How'd that go?
It was so interesting. Well, the hard part was the technology, but once we got that figured out, it was really cool. They just in message and then said what the question that they had. And honestly, they were great questions. I didn't have to be like, well, what if we did it this way instead? And so individually, I like connected to the person, not in person. I did it myself. I did incense and stuff and connected to the person and really tried to connect to their question and shuffled the cards and did a 3 card reading. And I videoed it, I taped it, whatever. I recorded it. How old are you, Amy? I recorded it and then eventually did just put it on YouTube as, just for them, a link
Yeah.
for them. Yeah, it went really well. It was so much fun.
And
It had been a while since I had read for anyone else, besides, like friends. And so it was nice to read for people who I didn't actually know.
yet you had no pre-existing
Mm-mm.
thoughts.
No, no. So that was really cool.
And I think that's
Yeah.
what having someone else, I think that was kind of my gateway into this is I would get tarot card readings done for my birthday. And that's kind of what got me. And then I got more into Reiki and sound baths and channelers and healers and readers and all that. But I would read for myself, but there is like sometimes I look at the card and be like, no, or I'd be like, that's not what I wanted to hear, and I'd put it away and I wouldn't finish the interpretation. And like having someone else read for you, it's not a shortcut. I feel like it's a road trip, and they started the drive and then you switch seats, right? And then you get to go the rest of the way.
What a great analogy,
Right?
Tracy. It really is because it's not just the one person saying it. Because then sometimes I think what can happen is that you can listen to what they said and look at the cards, and then all of a sudden something might pop out at you that maybe even, just like clicks it more into a reality for you. But also it's very hard to read for yourself. And I would say that when you're reading for yourself, it is actually okay to use the book. But sometimes it's not. I mean, sometimes you, once again, it comes down to intention and
Yeah.
also what's the outcome that I want from this. But
Well, and for me, with reading for myself and even just like those for the collective online readings people
mhm,
do, there's too much like, oh, yep, that validates what I already wanted. Right? Like you get excited about the stuff that you want and you're maybe not read the whole story. So and
yeah,
there's so many people who, I mean, you can both pay for it, you can do it in person, or there's free stuff as people learn.
yeah.
I think another thing that you can kind of do on your own, especially if you've been woo adjacent or if you want to move to the next level, I've been told by a lot of my practitioners and mentors, tell the divine, your guides, spirits, whatever, that you're ready. Ask for a teacher, ask for the class, ask for the knowledge, the introduction, the money to do it, and it'll come if you're really ready and if your intention is really there. So again, it comes down to like you have to know what you want, you have to know what you're tapping into, and then you got to ask for it or let them know you're ready for
Yeah.
it. Um and that can really help. I don't know.
Yes.
So, we've always been a little wooey on the show. Just some episodes more explicitly than others,
We've been
but
wooed Jason on the show.
so if you want more woo or how, let us know on all our socials or email and all that. If you liked this summer of woo, because like I said, we didn't even get wooey enough. Like one of my practitioners does dowsing of the house and that she talks about vortexes and things. I have another practitioner talks about aliens, right? Like we could do woo. But
Oh, woo, I hardly knew you.
so let us know. But yeah, so thank you for listening, especially if you've been with us for this mini season or mini series. We really appreciate it. We hope it wasn't too woo woo for you, or maybe just woo enough. Please spread the woo with a friend. I can't wait until we're done with me over marketing this. Um, so we'd appreciate you wooing us with some love on your preferred platform with the rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
With that, we hope you have a bright and magical day. Bye.
Bye.